Welcome back to Sappers Unscripted. That is our go-to thing. We're unscripted, but yet we always say, welcome back to Sappers Unscripted. Right here, we got Casual Bias Rugby. And yes, you're not seeing things, but there is no Brevin in this episode. He is still on holiday, living his best life. So us two plebs will just carry on the dream. But today's episode is quite a cool one. We want to talk about the South African franchises that have left Super Rugby and are now in the URC and also in the Champions Cup. So, Casual Bias Rugby, how do we feel about said Springbok players in the URC?
Well, to be fair, Brett, at the start, I wasn't a big fan of it when it first came out that we are going to be playing in this. Because, Super Rugby was big for us. We enjoyed watching the Stormers and the Bulls taking on the likes of the Crusaders and the Hurricanes because we knew that is like the biggest competition for us when it comes to franchise rugby. So when you take a massive competition like that in franchise rugby and you decide to scrap that and throw us into something different, there's a lot of risk and you don't know how to deal with that type of change. But since we've been there, and it feels like more watchable hours that we can put into watching rugby, I have loved every single second of it. Now, I'm not talking about the Champions Cup because we have been struggling in the time that we've been there. But I love the URC. I love watching it, knowing we win more games because we don't play against those the Aussies and the Kiwis the whole time with the traveling and stuff, waking up that early morning. It just feels great to watch. And I think it makes us, not only as franchises, but our box squad so much better because we stumble when we play in those nations with those weather, with their type of weather. But now we get used to it because we play there so many times.
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, when the URC was announced, or when it was announced that South Africa is going to the URC, or going to Europe for that matter, because it was still called Top 14, wasn't it? I had zero interest. I thought this was a massive downscale. I couldn't see anything positive coming from this. And season one was the worst for me because it took me a few games to warm up to it. And then when I saw the Bulls and the Stormers dominating from the word go, well, they mid-table by round 5 and then went on to play in the final, the two South African sides. And yet people thought that, South Africans don't belong. And then they go and win the first time. So after season one, I still wasn't quite convinced, but it's a nice feeling to know that we won a European competition.
Yeah, I mean, the odd thing is, as we spoke about in one of the previous episodes about the dead crowds, right? There wasn't many crowd support, and that is an issue, and that's one thing that we lost with the Super Rugby, as we mentioned, because there's so many Kiwi supporters in South Africa, so many Crusaders, Hurricanes, Highlanders supporters in South Africa. So our crowds aren't as stacked necessarily as it was in those days playing in the Super Rugby. But I can tell you, the passion for our rugby has almost never been higher. You've got, our stands are empty, but you see so many people in the pubs, so many people watching the rugby at home because someone mentioned it in the comments. It's almost more joyful to watch the rugby when you're not at the stands because you have all these angles, you can hear what the ref says, those type of things. So it's all about perspective. But I thoroughly enjoy watching the URC. And I'm not even talking about just the Stormers game. I love watching the Bulls play as well. I do hate the Bulls, but it just feels like something different to what we are used to seeing. We are used to seeing our teams get spanked, home and away, where the Lions were the strongest team. And now it feels better. You like winning.
I agree, but does that not also go back to what I just said, that it almost feels like it's a downgrade? Like when you play against certain teams, it's almost like you're going to win, which for me, I don't like that part of rugby. It's also when like the Springboks play against the minnow team, when they play against Uruguay. It's almost like they're going to win, and the same in the URC. Some teams, the teams are going to win. That was the round one, but this season is quite different. I think Stormers lost to Cardiff. Zebra beat Sharks. So now it's finally actually getting to the excitement level that I was anticipating.
Yeah, well, I would rather go into the game and know I'm going to win instead of playing the Crusaders and know I'm going to lose. You know, that's kind of how it felt in the Super Rugby. So, but I get what you're saying. Like, no one likes a spanking out of the park and stuff. But as you said, this season has been absolutely brilliant. But the big thing about it, I think the URC as in general grew so much since the South African teams came in. Because if you
Yeah.
thought about the European teams, you didn't really think about the URC because it was just Leinster and Munster there. Well, now you have Leinster, Munster, Connacht has come through, Ulster has come through as well. They've picked up their game. The Bulls, Sharks, Lions, Stormers, all of us has come in, which makes the competition so much feistier, if I could say it like that. So now the Champions Cup all of a sudden has become more feisty as well because there's more teams that could cause the upset.
Yeah.
And as you saw, the teams get better in the URC with the South African teams in, while the Super Rugby are dead on their feet at the moment. Like they are truly struggling. I don't know if you've watched too much of the Super Rugby lately since we've left, but it looks like they struggle at the moment.
Yeah, I do watch some Super Rugby still. I'm quite excited now to see next year how it's going to be. They got new kit sponsors and all that jazz. But what I've also noticed is it's not just us that are feeling the grunt of South Africa leaving the Super Rugby. I've got lots of messages from New Zealand fans saying, "Just come back. It's not the same. It's so easy for them. Top five sides are the top five New Zealand sides, and then the Australian and Fijian sides, they battle out for who's going to not get last place. So they annoyed by that, I think, and it does make me feel a bit happier because they didn't really want us, and they said also some fans still said that the Crusaders they would have won everything anyway, whether South Africa was there or not. But then, don't you think on international level that will also impact teams?
Yeah, probably, but you got Super Rugby isn't the same as international rugby at all because in international rugby we do this thing that you call defend, which is not done in Super Rugby. That's why every game has about 70 to 80 points in it, which is absolutely ridiculous. You watch the biggest teams play against each other and you see a scoreline of 35-45.
Yeah,
I'm
true.
not a fan of that. You could just as well watch rugby league then. But I think overall this move to the URC has been brilliant for our franchises and has been brilliant for us going into our international stage because our boys are getting used to playing in that wet weather. I think the URC, us being in the URC, won us that game playing against England because
Yeah,
in the past we are not used to playing those type of games, but now
yeah,
we play those games almost every week. We have to
yeah.
play those games because we have to adjust. So now boys come in. You have the likes of Andre Pollard that suits him perfectly, and he's been playing overseas for years. But our
Mm.
boys know how to play on those type of conditions at the moment, and that brings me on to a point that I kind of want to bring up to you. So we saw the move for the franchises of us going into the URC and the Champions Cup now. But there, a couple of years ago, I'm not sure if it's still in talks. There were slight, you could say, rumors about South Africa joining the Six Nations. Would you like to see South Africa leave the Rugby Championship and moving into the Six Nations as well, making it Seven Nations, or let's say Italy or someone drops out?
So on that, so Lawrence Dallaglio came out in the press and he said that firstly he doesn't want South African sides in the Champions Cup because we are helping them to get better. And now you want to add South Africa to the Six Nations and piss some more people off. I think that I don't want
What
that
South
to happen.
Africans does, Brett. That's our job.
Yeah, clearly. I don't want that to happen at all. I love that we play in the Four Nations or the Rugby Championship. I would actually like if a Fijian side or a Japanese side or something like that could come to us. I know Japan is more north than south, but I'd like stuff like that to happen. Rather strengthen the Rugby Championship and the Southern Hemisphere than get South Africa into the Six Nations because I often get bored with Six Nations. So I just think it's gonna. I think it's gonna tip the scales back towards New Zealand being a favourite. If we play in the Six Nations, it's gonna degrade our game.
Yeah, I totally agree. The only reason that I would be fine with joining the Six Nations, it will fit better with our players' schedules. So we won't have that end of the year tour where all of a sudden the half of our team can't play because they have contracts with their franchise teams. But
Yeah,
other than that, I want the best playing the best. I don't want to go play in that Mampara league called the Six Nations. I want to play the All Blacks. We look forward to playing the All Blacks twice a year at least.
yes,
We look forward
yes,
to playing Australia twice a year at least. Those are the big games. If you talk about the biggest rivalries in rugby, you say South Africa versus New Zealand, South Africa versus Australia, Australia versus New Zealand. All of those things, because that is pure rivalry. That is rugby heritage. Those three
yes.
teams. That's the
Agreed.
teams that have history. Now, would I like to see another team enter the rugby championship? I don't know, because then obviously you won't get a home and away game against New Zealand. So you will play a bit less against them. But you know what I like more than that? Southern Hemisphere dominance. So
Yes,
I want Japan, and I want Fiji, and I want Tonga, and I want Samoa. Those four teams play out against each other. Add one or two of them to the rugby championship, which will make it like our own Six Nations. But that will strengthen those teams to go and cause more upsets, like we saw in the Rugby World Cup build-up against England. What are your thoughts on teams like that being able to join the rugby championship? Would you like it?
so I'd love that. You just sparked something in my mind now. So I'd like for while the rugby championship is on, those four teams that you mentioned now play in their own tournament. The winner of that tournament plays against the loser of the rugby championship tournament, promotion relegation. And if say for example it's Australia that's last, not a dig at Australia, I'm just giving an example, and Fiji wins, for example, their tournament. They play against each other, one-off test, neutral ground. The winner plays in the rugby championship, and the loser goes and plays with the other guys. I would love that to happen.
Yeah, totally agree. Like we want those teams stronger, and the big thing that we always spoke about when it comes to tier two nations is how to get them stronger. Should they have their own rugby World Cup? And then it's like, yes, they could, because it will be competitive, but no one will watch it. But now, if you have like a mini play out, because they don't play as many franchise games as we do, our guys are overplayed almost. So
Yes.
give them an extra tournament, right? Use the rugby championship as the build up for that tournament. I don't even care. Like, hype that thing up, and then you get those teams to play more games. They get more chemistry in the teams. Then those tournaments are where gems are spotted, and then those guys can go play overseas. That will help not only that team but individual players like that as well. That's why you see, like, for instance, Samir Radradra coming out of nowhere, gets a spot overseas, makes millions, doesn't even care about life anymore. That is kind of what you want to do. You want to find those young gems, and I think the Six Nations should do that as well. Have Portugal and those guys play a bit more games, strengthening their rugby. You want to grow the sport, so we are
Do
getting
you think,
so off topic here, but I mean, that's a good discussion.
do you think New Zealand can hold on to their players if they do have a competition like that? Like, because they got a lot of Fijian, Samoan, Tongans in this that join through the ranks. I wonder if they'd actually be able to keep them, or they'd want to go back to the Tongas, the Samoans, the Fijis.
I think they'll be able to keep them just because of the fact that there's pride in playing in that All Blacks jersey. Everyone wants to play in that All Blacks jersey. It's the biggest one of the lot. I wouldn't be surprised if the people that realize, okay, listen, my chances are zero for playing for that team, they will go over, or they see they're a bit past it now, then they will go and play for Tonga and stuff. But the fact is, those guys, the people that are like proud Tonga, they will want to play for that Tonga jersey, but they need chemistry with their team. They need more games itself. Now, just to get back onto discussion, what do you think will happen if South Africa were to join the Six Nations? Do we win automatically, since the Northern Hemisphere is wank, or what happens?
Yeah, I think the first competition might be Actually, no. Yes, of course we win. Who's going to stand in our way? We all have full strength side. It's not like when we played Ireland, England, Scotland, and Wales at the end of the year with half a team. It's now full strength versus full strength, actual competition rules. So yeah, I think we take the first one, and
Yeah,
that's just
that's a point that so many players, or not players, so many people on social media miss when they say, listen, we lost to Ireland so many times. And it's like, dude, we had a half a team. Most of them are injured because it's the end of our season. Our guys are dead on their feet. They don't really care about this at the end. The other guys are playing for their franchises because they have contracts there. It's a very different ball game when we have full strength team with our chemistry and everything going. And I know that because we won the World Cup. Okay, that is how we know that, and that's why it's not cocky to say it, because the Northern Hemisphere teams has only won a tournament once, where all of the Southern Hemisphere teams has also played, and that's England in 2003. That is world dominance from the South.
I can see some Irishmen in the comment section now typing, but we beat you in the first game or in the group stages of the World Cup. How can you say we are losing? You are beating us in the Six Nations, because in order to win the World Cup, we had to lose a game.
Yeah, exactly. And something that they might miss while typing that is you have to play games in South Africa. Good luck with that.
Yes,
Like
even
you think you
our winters are hotter than their summers.
listen, they won't be able to deal with altitude. They won't be able to deal with our crowds. When was the last time a Northern Hemisphere team came to South Africa and gave us a beating? The only team that comes here and beats us is New Zealand, because there's so many New Zealand fans here.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so I mean, I would like to see it once, to be honest, but I don't want to leave the rugby championship. Like, that's the thing. The one thing that we wake up in the morning is like, when are we playing the All Blacks? When the season gets announced, the first thing we look at the calendar is, when are we playing New Zealand? When are we playing New Zealand home, especially? That is the big game for us. And to like not do that would be ridiculous.
Yeah, the thing that gets me is also that what I don't like is when we do play New Zealand away, those Saturday mornings 9 a.m. games. So for us it's 9 a.m. or 8:35, and now we have to wake up early. You can't really have a vibe going at your house because it's still bloody sparrows fart early in the morning. So maybe like you said, one tournament, just like a trial run. Can we go play there, please? One tournament? Yes. Okay, let's go. And then New Zealand, Argentina, and South Africa and Australia can have their little Tri Nations again, and then we just go win the Six Nations
Yeah,
quickly.
why don't they make an exception for the greatest rugby team to ever play the Rugby World Cup in the debate to ever play rugby? Say, listen, you guys aren't playing any franchise rugby this year. In Feb, you are playing the Six Nations, and then in July, you're starting with the Rugby Championship. I would love that. I would, I
I
would,
would
I would.
absolutely love that.
And Brett, then you do that tour that he was speaking about of watching every game. I would leave my job. I would, I would try and throw all my money on the wildest sports betting site. Listen, try and eat that stuff, have enough money, and travel with the team. Imagine
Mm.
watching that. Imagine watching like 15 Springbok games a year. Wow.
Yeah, I'd love that. I would absolutely love that. So, are we saying that? Are we in agreement that we'd like to see South Africa in the Six Nations just once, just to prove a point, and
Yeah.
then get
Overall,
back?
no. Overall, no. One season, yes. So what I'm saying is, franchises moving to European rugby championships and stuff, good for rugby. The Springboks moving to Europe, bad for rugby.
So, are you agreeing with Lawrence Dallaglio that came out and said South Africa should not be in the Champions Cup?
Yes. No.
Wow.
No. I'm disagreeing with him. We should be in the Champions Cup. I'm so lost now. Our franchises should be in the Champions Cup. Yes, of course,
Yes.
because our franchises play in Europe, so we should be there.
Yes, and he says that we shouldn't because that's just helping South Africa get better, which I think is the opposite. I think South Africa is helping Europe get better. But
I think
on that
wherever
note,
South Africa goes, they make teams better. That's why the Super Rugby people have come out and said, listen, their tournament has lost physicality because the South
yes,
Africans aren't there.
yes. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this. Another great episode. We know you loved it. We know you enjoy watching us all the way through to the end of the video so that you can hear us say like and subscribe and share and comment and throw flames. We will see you in the next episode. Get used to us because in 10 years we'll still be here. Okay, bye.